Welcome to Not in Real Estate with me, National Core. In today's episode, we want to discuss about what you need to pay attention to when you're seeking to borrow money from a bank or a Sacco to build your house. I know there's so many things that we need to pay attention to, but I'm going to talk about the one critical thing that when you're seeking to borrow money and to build a house, either from a Sacco or from a bank, the one critical thing that I want you to pay attention to, that is the most critical thing to look out to when you're borrowing money. And you're going to look at it in detail before you borrow the money. That is the most common mistakes most people make while borrowing money to build their houses. I'm going to discuss that at length. But before I do that, let me remind you about this book, The 7 Rules on Real Estate. It's barely a month old. Launched at the end of August. Basically, the 7 rules that you need to go through when you're seeking to invest in real estate in whatever area, whether it's you're seeking to build, you're seeking to buy, if you're seeking to do an investment of real estate of whatever kind. Please get this book from us, either online, DM us, get it from Nuria Bookstore. It's available on Amazon as well. Get a copy. Please go through the 7 rules of real estate. We are happy to assist you whenever you feel something is not clear. Just get in touch with us. Now, many people are borrowing money to build. Many people are borrowing money from banks, people are borrowing money from Saccos, or whatever financial institution people are borrowing money from to build houses. And look, I encourage people to build houses. I've always been asked so many times, should you buy, should you build? And building has good advantages. And building is good. Building has some of very good advantages over buying. You customize the building to whatever nature you want. You're in control of whatever space you're building. You are in charge of quality. You are in charge of the pricing. You certainly build to your spec, to whatever you want. You're in charge of the time. You're not affected by the issues of someone else or who you give your money to build for you. For example, when you're buying, the side of buying, you're not even sure sometimes they will complete the apartments. The issues of people buying apartments that are so much delayed in this country. So building is good. Fundamentally as well, if you build and follow the correct procedures, you will build cheaper than buying. 100%. If you follow the procedures of building, you will end up having that house cheaper than when you buy. For obvious reasons, of course, because when you buy a house, the person you're buying from is in business, so he is built to the way you're building, and it is marked up his profit. So you can always shave off that margin, that markup that developers make by building yourself. But this is a problem when people borrow to build. Okay, and I want to discuss about the one critical thing you need to pay attention to when you're borrowing money. When you're borrowing money to build a house. And I've interacted with so many Kenyans, for instance, so many people that have borrowed money, finished the money, and the house is not complete. Okay, and now they have to go back to their pockets. They have a loan with the bank already. The house they are building is not complete. They have to go back to their pockets to complete the project. Sometimes they don't even have the money to complete the project. So what are those mistakes that people make? Now, before I discuss the critical thing you need to look out for when you're building a house, let me mention that if you're going to build a house, be contented with a lot of sweat, it requires your attention. Building a house requires attention. If you have no time if you're the person that is so busy, if you have no time for these activities that are going to be required to do while building, please buy an apartment and forget about building. It's one of the reasons one of the factors I tell people to consider on whether to build or buy. And one of the critical things there is time. Time is one of the critical things I always tell someone who is toying with the idea of should I build, should I buy. Building a house requires you to have time. It's going to require you to be available for that process. That 6-8 months process of building your house requires you to be a lot more present. So if you're the person that likes to recline, you have no time, be it from your schedule of work or be it just your nature, You're not the time person to get involved in some of these things. Please go buy an apartment, buy a house, and forget about building. Okay? Because it requires you. I know the issues that we are facing in this country. The issues of people being conned with off-plan buying, and the issues we face generally in buying houses. I've meant people to think of it like building a house is an easier route than buying. It's not. Okay? Yes, there are issues with off-land buyings, the issue with development buying, so there is to that effect when you're going to buy an apartment that someone else has built or a house that someone else has built. So I know there are issues in that area, and hopefully in future we will be able to insulate those issues through legislations or regulations somehow. But don't be deceived that because there are issues in buying a house, building a house is the easier route. It's not the easier route. Okay? It's not the easier route. Generally, if you get involved in property, be it buying or building, vigilance is at the core of it. Whether you're buying a house, you're building a house, vigilance is at the core of both two processes. You're going to be required to be extremely vigilant, especially in a country that is developing like Kenya. We have a lot of issues that are still going from. We've not unlearned a lot of issues. Our ethics is not where we want it to be. So certainly whether you're building or buying, vigilance is at the core of it. But if you're going to build a house, let me give you one or two tips. Then I'll talk about the most critical thing you need to watch out for when you're going to build a house. When you're going to borrow money, the thing is borrow money. If you have the money in your account, well and good. This will not apply to you much. But even that, it may. But if you're going to borrow money, if you're getting money from a bank, you're being financed to build your own house, what is the most critical thing? One of the most critical things you must watch out for. I'm coming to that. First of all, let me say that when you're building, there's rules to be followed, and they're very punitive rules to be followed. If you don't follow those rules, you're going to be in problems. Okay? Number one is consultants. You must have properly experienced registered consultants. You must leverage on the experienced registered consultants while building. One of the mistakes people make, one of the mistakes a lot of people make when they're building their own house, you go for the cheap one, the quack, the less experienced, and then you're going to run into problems. If you're going to build a house, you must leverage, you must take advantage of the experienced consultants. Yes, they are expensive. Okay? Yes, they are expensive. Or let me say, yes, they cost more than the rest. But they will bulletproof you. They will ensure you have less headache. They will ensure that you have a house without issues, a house without cracks. So please get proper, registered, experienced consultants when you're building your own house. Number two, please do not build your house with your uncle fundis. Okay? Get a registered contractor. Get an experienced registered contractor. Please have someone who has experience in building such a project. Someone who has experience in doing such a project, in developing such a project. It's a good thing for you. Because even if you have the experienced consultants and you have a mediocre contractor, you'll run into problems. Consultants are never contractors. So, those are the two critical things I want you to think about when you're building. Please have a proper registered experienced consultants. Leverage on experienced engineers and architects. Experienced quantity surveyor. If you can, it will be more beautiful. Please get a project manager. Okay? Get a project manager so that can help you manage your project properly. Sometimes, even if you're so busy and you don't have the time, if you have, for example, you have a project manager who's experienced managing projects, you're sort of insulated from a lot of the issues that affect people build houses. But the problem we have is we want to have it our way when it comes to building houses. You want to get money from a bank or a Sacco, and yes, they're going to require you to have registered people. But even at that level, you went for the very least of the registered. Get experienced people on these projects. Okay? Now, Let me not talk about the one critical thing, that whenever you're borrowing money, when you're borrowing money from a financial institution to build a house, you must watch out for. This is a mistake most people make. The critical thing you need to do when you're borrowing money from financial institutions, be it a bank, be it a Sacco, whatever institutions of finance it is you must pay ruthless attention to the bills of quantities. Pay ruthless attention to the bill of quantities. If you don't pay ruthless attention to the bill of quantities, you're going to run into problems. Okay? You're going to run into problems. Look at that bill of quantities like your life depends on it, because it may just depend on it. I'll explain why. Now, a lot of people are going to borrow money from a bank, and this is what they usually do. Okay, so they get an architect, someone who just walked out of campus, for instance, or they recently registered. Most of the times they're not even registered. They get the diploma guy to do the house. Then they get someone to stamp for it because the bank requires a license. They get the least experience of engineers, and then they get the least experience of quantity surveyor. Now, while you may get away with the first two, you want to get away with the least experienced quantity surveyor, because a lot of the bill of quantities that we use to borrow money have a lot of flaws. They have a lot of flaws. I have reviewed so many bills of quantities for clients that are seeking to borrow money from banks, and I always certainly find a lot of issues that are left out. And you can tell the person doing the bill of quantities is least experienced, and you can tell that he's paid the least money. And yet you are going to the bank to borrow, 15 million, for instance. You're going to the bank to borrow 20 million, and the document that you're using to borrow that money has issues. That even if the bank gives you 15 million, you won't finish. And that is the problem most people run into. Okay? The bill of quantities that you use to borrow must, and the word is must, capture everything you intend to do on that project. It cannot be squeezed. I know people will say, I just want to, the bank can only give you 8 million and in the BQ that is 8 million. It cannot work in reverse. If you have a certain design, the design must be costed to the T. There is no way that you're going to change numbers. Okay? Mathematics, 1 plus 1 is 2. Whether you go to the moon, come back, that is a number. So the document that you use and the bill of quantities is the document that you rely on. That's the document that the bank is going to disburse based on. That bill of quantities must capture every detail of what you intend to build. If that document leaves some things out, they're going to go into your pocket. If that document left out certain plumbing elements, you go to your pocket. If that document does not capture a septic tank or biodigester, you'll get it from your pocket. If that document do not capture the correct steel quantities, you will get it from your pocket. Because once the bank has approved for you that they will give you 10 million, they will give you 10 million, not 12. So people are running into problems because the document they're using to borrow money from is flawed. And please get a proper quantity surveyor. I've mentioned here that leverage on the experienced consultants when you're building a house. Please pay for that service. However expensive in quotes may be, pay for that service. Projects are stalled. Many projects are stalled outside here because they borrowed 12 million, they borrowed 7 million, the bank finished disbursing 7 million, house not yet complete. Because the document they used to borrow left out certain things. And I've reviewed so many times I've gone through bill of quantities, people going to borrow money, and you find this house is not 8 million as captured in the BQ. So many things are left out. This house is actually 12 million. For it to be a house completed and habitable, 12 million. So if you go with 8 million, prepare to have 4 million from your personal account. Pay ruthless attention to the bill of quantities when you're borrowing money to build a house, especially your house. Because unlike the developer, you know the luxury developers may have sometimes is when they're building a house to sell and they're borrowed, they could have the luxury of increasing the sale prices for an apartment to cushion them against the variation they'll get from such mistakes. When you're building your own house, you don't have that luxury. There is no other source of finance you're going to get other than from your pocket when you make certain mistakes in the bill of quantities. So take your time. If you get a good experienced consultant, you'll be dry on home, I can assure you. But go through it, understand that the bill of quantities has captured everything that constitutes a fully completed home, a fully completed house. Otherwise, you're going to sink into an additional debt. You're going to go into an additional debt and you're going to be in serious problems. That is one of the many mistakes people make when building houses, when borrowing to build houses. But one of the greatest mistakes they make is on the bill of quantities. And I said, if you have this money in your account, you're not borrowing, well and good. Of course, you need to finish your house with a certain budget. But you don't have a financial institution on your neck that you're paying some interest, you're paying some loan on a house not yet complete. But the thing is with getting a mediocre bill of quantities when you borrow money to build a house is you're going to start paying for that house, paying for that loan. And if you didn't have money to finish the house from your pocket because of your silly mistakes, you're going to pay for another loan for the next 4 or 5 years as you finish your house while still paying rent as well. So you're going to be in serious problems. Check the BQ, and when you've checked, check it again. And when you're finished checking it again, check it a third time. Go through it with the consultant. Have those reviews where you ask everything. Yeah? Have curtain rods there. Have every single thing that you want in that house to be captured in the bill of quantities. So when the banks begin to disburse, or when you say this house is 12 million, certainly it's 12 million. Everything is captured. The usual things that are left, landscaping is captured. Septic, biodigester, the tanks are captured. Okay? The stormwater drains, everything that you want to build, the boundary walls are captured. Every part of this house is captured in the bill of quantities. Okay? You can get someone to review it. As I've said, I've done a lot of reviews of bill of quantities for people who are seeking to build houses, just to ensure the quantity surveyor didn't make a mistake, or he or she didn't leave out any item in the bill of quantities. Most of the times, when we do that, we always find something was left out. And that's something, if it went to site and the bank started disbursing, that something is going to be paid from your pocket. And if you don't have that money to pay for it, then certainly you're going to start paying for the loan of building that house on a house not yet completed while you're still paying your own rent. Pay ruthless attention to the bill of quantities. Go through it like your life depends on it. Before you settle on borrowing that money from a financial institution, review the BQ. Okay? All those utopia finishes that the architects has done or promised you in the drawing, ensure everything that is promised in that render is captured in the BOQ. There's no critical thing in the BOQ, in the drawing that's left in the BOQ. I know sometimes you're a lay person and this could seem overwhelming. Get someone else to review that BQ for you. Get someone else. If that someone else needs to be paid, pay that someone else. There's no shortcuts in these things, guys. People are painfully paying for loans on houses they borrowed to do, not yet completed, okay? And they're still paying rent. And they even don't know when they will get the money to complete their house because the bank finished the disbursement. The bank finished the disbursement. The bank has finished giving you 11 million to build your house. The house is not yet complete. You require 4 million to finish the house because the bill of quantities had errors, had mistakes. Don't make that mistake when you're building a house. Take your time. Go through it with the team. As I said, please get experience. Some of these things you cure them with proper registered experienced consultant. Leverage on those kind of people. Get a project manager. Review those documents for you. Okay? When you go to build a project, you are sure whatever is costed for will be built and the money being disbursed is sufficient to do a project. Otherwise, if you don't do these things, you're going to have tears and sweat and blood. We will add your project as part of statistics. So that is one of the grave mistakes. One of the grave mistakes I have witnessed people who borrow money from institutions, financial institutions, do when they're building their own homes. And as I said, do not be deceived that because there are issues with buying a house or buying houses off plan, building is an easy option. It could be better, but it's not easy. Okay? It requires vigilance. It requires you to be on your toes. And do not make these grave, gross mistakes that many people have made while they're building and borrowing money from financial institutions. Pay ruthless attention to the bill of quantities. Review it. Review it again like your life depends on it because it just may. Thank you.